On a rainy Wednesday night here in New York, this is your AEW Dynamite review, but not only an AEW Dynamite review, it is the 250th Dynamite review. There have been 250 episodes of AEW Dynamite. Tonight was a big night. Two big matches on this show tonight. And you know, in 5 years of AEW, and 250 episodes of this show, but, you know, Dynamite and pay-per-views, just all of the different AEW events, there have been a handful of time limit draws. The first one was a 20-minute draw, Fyter Fest 2019, the early days of AEW, before Dynamite was even a thing. Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin, they went to a 20-minute time limit. We've had a few 30-minute time limit draws. We had, of course, Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson, one of the best 30-minute matches you'll ever see. We had MJF against Adam Cole, the very first time they stepped in the ring together on Dynamite, right? That was a 30-minute draw as well. And then you've got your 60-minute Broadways. You've got your 60-minute, hour-long time limit draws, one of the greatest matches in Dynamite history. Bryan Danielson for an hour, one-on-one with Hangman Adam Page. And of course, MJF and Bryan Danielson, they went an hour, even though it wasn't, you know, a draw. They went into sudden death overtime, but they went an hour and then some in their Iron Man match. So this is not a situation that MJF is a stranger to. He has had his share of long matches here in AEW. He can add tonight to the list because tonight he damn near went the distance. All but 2 seconds, he went the distance with Will Ospreay in one of the greatest matches, and I would not argue with you if you said the greatest match in Dynamite history. And there have been a lot of great matches on Dynamite, which is why I'm hesitant to sit here and say that it's the best, but it may be the best. These two went out there tonight. It's going to be a very polarizing match, I could already tell, just based on the poll results and based on the comments that I've already been getting from people. A lot of divided opinion about this match. People who thought that it was too long. It didn't have to go nearly as long as it did. They could have shaved off 20 or 30 minutes from this match. I don't know how you can watch that match and come away from it with hate in your heart. You don't necessarily need to think that it was the best. But I watched this match and I just don't understand how people could come away from it with any sort of hate towards it. You can nitpick it. You can say, well, you know, I would have done this differently or I didn't like this aspect of it. But what we got tonight between MJF and Will Ospreay, you had two of the very best in the world right now at what they do. Any promotion, anywhere in the world. Will Ospreay is one of the best in the business. MJF, one of the best in the business. Some people will laugh at that because they don't look at MJF that way. Well, you need to rub your eyes, maybe use some eye drops. I don't know why people are still sleeping on MJF, but apparently there are still people out there who don't look at MJF as being some kind of great in the wrestling business right now. Or he could talk, but he can't work, or he could work, but he, you know, this element of his game is perfectly fine. He could talk, he could work, he could do all of those things. And he goes out there consistently in these matches and he proves it time and time again against anybody he's been in the ring with, from Darby Allin to Kenny Omega to Adam Cole to Will Ospreay to Bryan Danielson to anybody you want to name that he has been in the ring with in a major match. He has gone in there and he has delivered. And tonight was no different. Will Ospreay, of course, Kenny Omega would call himself the best bout machine. He ain't the best bout machine no more. The best bout machine is Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay goes out there every single time and absolutely kills it no matter who he's in the ring with. And I watch this guy and I think to myself, how can he do the things that he does? And I know it drives some people nuts. Oh, he doesn't sell this. He doesn't do this. He's just a bunch of flips and all this stuff. I hear all the critiques, but the bottom line is you had two of the very best go out there tonight for 60 minutes. 60 minutes minus 2 seconds. And they killed it. I thought they had an outstanding match. The rest of the show, outstanding is not the word I would use for it. It definitely fell off from hour 1 to hour 2. But these two men occupied the entire first hour of the show, and it was not announced as an Iron Man match or anything like that. But they went the full distance in that first hour, right up until the very end. And they had some brass balls doing the finish that they did on this show. And now it throws All In into a state of confusion because what appears to be the setup for a ready-made rematch between these two for the international title. And oh, by the way, we have a new champion. But what seems like just a ready-made play for a rematch between these two, I don't know that that's necessarily the direction that Tony Khan is going in here, because we still have that little element of Pac, who became #1 contender for the international title. I didn't think I heard him at first say Wembley specifically, but then everybody said to me, oh, it's going to be at Wembley. He said Wembley. Well, if he's getting an international title match at Wembley, where does that leave Will Ospreay? What about Daniel Garcia? Are they not planning on bringing back Daniel Garcia in time for a match at All In? Are they only going to save him for a match at All Out? I find that hard to believe. So what becomes now of Pac and his title shot? When is he going to get that shot at the international title? Is it going to be on TV? With the hope that he'll win and then he can get his Wembley moment by walking into Wembley as the defending champion? Or is he getting that title match at All In? And then Will Ospreay, where he stands. We'll talk more about that when we get to the end of the match here. But the other key thing about tonight is that the teams have been set. Blood and Guts is coming up on Dynamite next week. Tony Khan is loading up these shows. And if you're wondering why is he doing this, why is he loading up these shows, it's pretty clear why he's doing this. I mean, we get Blood and Guts every year, but why would he give away MJF and Will Ospreay tonight just because it's 250 episodes? Why would he give away the first match between Swerve Strickland and Kazuchika Okada, champion against champion, on the same show here tonight? And then that takes us into Blood and Guts next week. Why? What's going on here? Well, they have a very important deal that is pending. 5 years of Dynamite. Tony Khan would like to see another 5 years of Dynamite on TNT or TBS. They are in the home stretch when it comes to negotiations and conversations about a deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. He wants to put his best foot forward. He wants these shows to do as well as they possibly can do. He wants to pop a number. I don't know that he's going to, not one that's much higher than what they've been doing, but that was partly at least his goal in loading up this show tonight, and now we go right into Blood and Guts next week. As a viewer of the show, it's great because, it gives us a bunch of big matches to enjoy, and it gives me a bunch of big matches to talk about. But man, he's throwing a lot at us with the expectation and hope that people are going to tune in, and he could, hopefully bring more viewers into the show. But next week is Blood and Guts. The teams are set. We have Team Elite. We now know all the members of Team AEW. We had a big brawl at the end of the show. It felt a little Nitro-esque, the way that they were trying to go off the air tonight. And then we had some stuff in between that we'll cover as well, including the follow-up to last week's tremendous closing segment with Mariah May and Toni Storm. And the Learning Tree. Had a fine time for the Learning Tree on the show as well. This is your AEW Dynamite review for Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. I am the Solomonster. Like and subscribe. Super chats are open. I've made even more updates. You can find them in the description down below. All the super chat updates and amounts are listed down there. And of course, if you want to become a channel member, you may do so as well. We have our Green World Order that is always open for business. GWO. That's what I said, the GWO. Thank you to everybody who has gifted memberships tonight as well. Your patronage is appreciated. But let's get into the big match that they opened the show with tonight because they didn't waste any time. They opened with the biggest of matches here that you could possibly ask for as we are heading into All-In season at Wembley Stadium, and you would think that Will Ospreay is surely going to be primed for a big match on that show. And if he is not challenging for the AEW World title, then he must be getting into the ring with someone the caliber of an MJF. So imagine my surprise when Tony Khan announced that we were going to get the match on TV. And that's what we had here for the international title. It was Will Ospreay defending his championship against MJF. Wembley be damned. The bell sounded. MJF immediately bails out to the floor, goes into the crowd. He grabs water. He splashes water on some fans, tears up another fan's sign. Back inside, we had a Fargo strut led to a fast sequence of counters and dodging big moves. Ospreay started building some momentum. He got the Sasuke special. Back inside, MJF dodged 2 moonsaults. Ospreay landed on his feet each time and then hit a standing shooting star press. Followed that with a Sky Twister press. So as I mentioned this is all in the beginning of the match here. So you watch this match and it's not set up in a way that makes you think that they're going to, pace themselves here and go almost 60 minutes or go 60 minutes, which is, they went 60 minutes. But you didn't get that impression off the bat. Sometimes with these matches, they start super slow, right? MJF did go into the crowd, but I didn't get the impression they were slowing anything down here. So looking at where they ended up going was kind of interesting. MJF bailed outside again. Ospreay hit another dive and he cleaned off the timekeeper's table. And he picked it up over his head and he brought it around to the other side of the ring and he set it up against the barricade. And this would become part of the story of the match. There were a couple of different stories playing out here during this match, for those of you big on story. This was one. This was a small story here because that one table sat there for nearly the duration of the entire match, and it came into play a few different times, but it wasn't broken. It wasn't broken the first time. It wasn't broken the second time. They would come back to it later on. So the table was set up, and it was just sitting there for a while. MJF worked the leg. He sank in a figure 4 leg lock. Ospreay, though, got to the ropes. Later on, they both ended up on the apron where MJF dodged an Os cutter, and Ospreay told Bryce Remsburg that his shoulder was out. So he was selling the shoulder here. Something's wrong. We got a problem here. They went to a commercial. Ospreay was being attacked by MJF before the doctors had a chance to check up on him. MJF cut off on Ospreay handspring and then hit an underhook shoulder breaker before following with Made in Japan for 2. He opted to trash talk the fans, which allowed Ospreay to hit a desperation handspring Pele kick for the double down. MJF tried bailing through the crowd again. Ospreay, though, was quick after him. And as they're walking up the steps through the crowd, he held MJF for a little girl in the crowd so that she could smack him a couple of times. So a couple of little love taps. As soon as the girl turned around, MJF flipped her off. At least he had the decency to wait until she turned her back. Because she couldn't have been more than, I don't know how old she was. 5, maybe? 6? Maybe 7? I don't know. I'm terrible at guessing ages here, but he flipped her off. Ospreay also then dumped him upside down into a garbage can. And then MJF stumbled back to ringside. By the way, I should mention this. And this is one of the critiques that some people will have, and it's a valid critique about this match. This match was never announced as not having any countouts, like no countouts. And so they were outside on more than one occasion. They were outside multiple times, but especially here. And the referee was clearly being very lenient here because Bryce Remsburg wanted to make sure we got a decisive winner. And so basically it turned into a match where there were no countouts because the referee wasn't doing any counting. Ospreay set up MJF on the table outside. First time now that the table is officially coming into play. Ospreay went up to the top rope. MJF moved off the table and back into the ring. MJF ended up hitting up a Long Island Sunrise for a close near fall. Ospreay ended up a little bit later on the table outside. And now MJF was going to go up, but he rolled off. So now Ospreay rolls off to safety. He ended up hitting an Os cutter off the top of the barricade. Back inside, Ospreay countered a Crossroads attempt. His good friend. He counters a Crossroads with a Crossroads of his own, and right before he hit the Crossroads, he gave a little wink to the camera. Ospreay avoided a Heat Seeker. MJF, though, crotched a springing Ospreay and hit a lariat. Both men traded tombstone attempts on the apron. Ospreay ended up hitting a Styles Clash on the apron. A one-arm powerbomb got Ospreay a near fall before a commercial break, of which we had many. One of the drawbacks of doing a big match like this on TV is you have to put up with the commercial breaks. This gave Ospreay a chance to get his shoulder checked by the doctor. Excalibur said when they came back that the doctor had to pull the shoulder into place. And so, shout out here to the crack medical staff, the crack medical team here in AEW for taking care of this man by resetting his arm and then allowing him to continue fighting. See? The AEW medical team, they don't give a shit. Got your arm working again? All right, good. Get back out there. You're good. You're good to go. So MJF countered an Os Cutter into a tombstone for a 2 count. MJF got backdropped to the floor. Ospreay set up for something on the apron, but MJF swept the leg. And then he turned his back. And he was looking into the camera to do some trash talking. And as he was doing that, it allowed Will Ospreay to hit a suicide hidden blade. I don't think I've ever seen a suicide hidden blade before. And just the positioning of the camera was perfect. They got this great shot as MJF is standing there yakking into the camera, and then Ospreay sailing through the air, and then boom, blasting him right in the back of the head. So back inside, we had the Pip Pip Cheerio by Ospreay. But he took too long in the corner. He got crotched by MJF, who wanted a Hurricane Rana. So he went for it. He jumped up. He went to go take him over. But Ospreay held on. And Ospreay countered into an Avalanche Styles Clash. Covered MJF, but he was so close to the ropes, he got his hand up, grabbed the bottom rope for the break. MJF wrenched on the bad arm and then hit a heat seeker before setting Ospreay up on the table outside. So now we're back to the table again. We've already had 2 times where the table nearly came into play and was nearly destroyed. Now this is number 3. And he's got Ospreay on the table. He goes up to the top rope. And MJF comes flying off the top rope with a flying elbow through the table. And that takes us into a 3rd commercial break. You know, MJF hurt himself on that very move. A diving elbow from the top rope onto Jay White. I think that's the move where he dislocated his hip in the match they had at Full Gear. Now, that was dumber. That was a very dumb thing to do. Because if you remember, the table broke before he could come off the top. Like Jay White's on the table broke. He jumped off the top anyway. So when he came down right on the ground. So he had nobody to blame but himself. That was a very stupid move. This wasn't quite that stupid, but I still held my breath when he did it this time. I mean, we got this guy on the shelf for 6 months. Last thing Tony Khan needs is MJF back on injury reserve for another 6 months. But what I did like about the table stuff is the way they teased it. So it wasn't just like an obligatory table spot and they just did it and then they just moved on. I mean, they did. Look, every table spot you see in every match now, it's done and then they move on, right? But at least here they built to it. They teased it and then they teased it and then they finally gave it to you. So we come back from commercial. MJF is working an abdominal stretch. Bryce Remsburg, though, kicks the arm off the ropes. We get another reset. We got some quick pin attempts here from Will Ospreay, who tried a leapfrog. MJF, though, hit a nasty, this was brutal. Nasty powerbomb right on his knee. MJF then teased the kangaroo kick, which he said he wasn't going to do anymore. Ospreay, though, blocked it into the Cheeky Nandos. Tried a corner poison Rana, but MJF landed on his feet the way that Will Ospreay normally does. Although I think we've seen MJF do that before. MJF tried a corner Rana of his own, but Ospreay landed on his feet too. Anything you can do, I can do better. So MJF at that point, he looked into the hard camera. He's standing in the middle of the ring. And he looks into the hard camera and he starts mocking the crowd. And then out of nowhere, he just eats a hook kick from Ospreay. So we got a crazy series of rolling pin attempts. It was all for 1. 1 count here, 1 count here. And then we got one that had a 2 count. And that got a rise out of the crowd because I think for a moment there they thought that might be it. But he kicked out. There was a thrust kick in midair by MJF when Ospreay went for the Os Cutter. Kicked him right out of midair. But Ospreay came back and he hit a Stun Dog Millionaire. He hit a wonky-looking Spanish Fly for a 2 count. Ospreay took too long in the corner. MJF then wanted an Avalanche Tombstone. Ospreay countered into a Springboard Os Cutter. And then he hit the Hidden Blade. And he covered him, and MJF kicked out at 2.5. So MJF is on his knees now, and he spits in his face. This pisses off Will Ospreay, who shouts, Tiger Driver. He's going to go for the Tiger Driver 91. This is the move that he has not tried since the match with Bryan Danielson at Dynasty, when he dropped Danielson on the back of his fucking head, and Danielson started twitching and, selling the move. And the story ever since has been that he's not going to do the move anymore. He can't bring himself to do it. He doesn't want to hurt anybody else or injure anybody else. It's what Don Callis kept trying to get him to do, and he refused to do it. And by the way, don't forget, Don Callis allowed him to leave the Callis family a little too easily. So I'm still waiting any week now. There's going to be payback for that. It hasn't come yet, but I think it's coming soon. So now he's going to go for the Tiger Driver 91. He hooks the arms, and he got him up for it, and he's holding him in the air. And he's holding him, and he's holding him, and the camera kind of zooms in on his face, and you can see that he's having this internal struggle. Should I or shouldn't I? Right? The angel and the devil. Ultimately, he sets him down. He decides against it. When he does that, MJF shoves him into Bryce Remsburg. And so we got a ref bump, right? Down goes the referee. MJF, as Ospreay comes in, MJF turns around, and it looked like he was hiding something, and, we can figure what it was, but couldn't see it. But he decks him right in the face. Knocks him out. Of course, it's the Dynamite Diamond Ring, which ended up on the floor outside. But he had it concealed, so nobody could see it. MJF covered him. I swear the referee, he recovered in record time. I've never seen a referee recover from a ref bump this quickly in my life. But he was right there because we're in the final minute of this match as all of this is unfolding, right? The announcers, and this is kind of what gave away the fact that they were not going to go the full 60 minutes. And I kind of hate, actually, that Excalibur did this, or they had Excalibur do this. They acknowledged the possibility of the match going to a time limit draw. And as soon as he did that, I said, this match is not going to a time limit draw. Like, just as a wrestling fan, when you hear that, you just automatically assume, okay, they brought it up, right? In a situation like that, you're in the final minute of the match. Like, unless there's a giant clock on the screen, if it's like an Iron Man match, I don't know why you would bring that up, because all you're doing is telling your audience that this thing you said that might happen, it's not going to happen. So unfortunately, that kind of gave the finish away for me. But he covers him, the referee recovers, he counts, and at the 59-minute and 58-second mark, with 2 seconds to spare in this match, MJF pins Will Ospreay, hands him his second consecutive major loss. After going undefeated since signing full-time with AEW, he's now lost to Swerve Strickland, and he's now lost to MJF. And MJF is the new AEW International Champion. They got a great shot of the Dynamite Diamond Ring just sitting there on the floor outside. In the ring, doctors get in the ring. They give MJF oxygen. They help him to his feet as he's holding up the international title. At least they got the fucking mask on his face the right way this time. Wrestle Recap says, I disagree. They bring up time limits all the time. They do bring up time limits more than WWE does, but again, the fact that they brought it up here in this instance in the final 60 seconds, I'm sorry, that gave it away. You don't do that. You don't do, unless you're telegraphing it in that moment, in those final waning moments of the match, you don't bring it up. Because what people are watching, right? They're watching the action. They know time is ticking down, like the fans know. The fans know that time is ticking down. Justin Roberts did have a time call in the arena. But again, people are paying more attention to what's going on in the ring. I don't need Excalibur to sit there and go, oh, he doesn't want it to go to a time limit draw, or bring up the time limit draw. Like, you just don't bring it up. There's no need for the announcers to actually bring it up. Just focus on what's going on. Focus on the action that's going on. To me, it just gives it away. But the balls on these people to do that finish, again, 2 seconds left in the match, 2 seconds away from a time limit draw, and they actually changed the title and they beat Will Ospreay. I thought that they were going to chicken out of wanting to give us a winner. I thought they were going to want to protect both men by not giving us a winner in this match, the way things were trending here. But in the end, they did the title change, and MJF wins the championship. So that was surprising, because they had me convinced up until Excalibur spoiled it that we were going to get a time limit draw. This was an outstanding battle between two of the very best, not just in AEW, but in the entire wrestling business today. Will Ospreay is untouchable. In the ring, bell to bell, nobody can touch him. MJF is fantastic. They went out there, and I said last week, I said, it sounds like we're getting the match. It's not a bait and switch. It's not going to be an angle more than a match. They're going to give us the match. I didn't know we were going to get 60 minutes worth. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be of the opinion, because I already saw it, that the match was too long. It didn't need to be as long as it was. It felt like they dragged it out. Did the match need to go 60? It did, because that was the story they wanted to tell. They wanted you to come this close to thinking that it was going to go to a draw and then pull the rug out from under you at the very last minute. So when you have a championship match that has a 60-minute time limit, if you want to tell that story, then you got to find a way to go the full 60. It worked for me. It didn't drag for me. I never thought it dragged. I was never bored. I thought that they were able to spread the action out enough where it was pretty much action-packed from start to finish. And I got to say, kudos to the crowd in Little Rock when they announced that this match was going to take place on this show. Instead of in front of 40 or 50,000 people at Wembley Stadium, right? Ospreay's countrymen, right? A rabid crowd. They're going to do it in Little Rock, Arkansas, in front of 2,300 people. And I said, well, I don't know what kind of crowd we're going to get. It's a crapshoot sometimes. Sometimes they're loud. Sometimes they sit on their hands. And I was hoping that we would have a great atmosphere for a match this big. And I thought they delivered. From start to finish, they were loud. They were into it. They were with these guys every step of the way. And it sounded like they had five or 6,000 people in the building, which they didn't. But it sounded like it. So kudos to them. But this match, for me, it rockets right up the list. One of the best matches in 2024. When this year is over and that list is composed, I already put it on. It's already on the list. The list already has way too many matches on it. I'll have to cut it down. But this will rocket up towards the top of the best matches list for 2024. And they told the story here with Will Ospreay yet again, proving Swerve Strickland right. Remember what Swerve said. Going into their match at Forbidden Door, you can't be me. You can't be the champion because you don't have the killer instinct. You can't be the champion because you can't do what needs to be done. He proved him right. He did the same thing here tonight with MJF. He had the chance to put this man away with the Tiger Driver. He had him up, and he couldn't bring himself to do it. But guess what? MJF is the scumbag heel. He has no problem taking shortcuts and doing what needs to be done. And that's what he did. He went to his tried and true. How many times have we seen MJF rely on the diamond ring in the last 5 years of this company to win him matches? It's his MO. It fits him to a T. So what Will Ospreay couldn't do, MJF could. That's why MJF has been a world champion in this company and Will Ospreay has not. So the Tiger Driver story continues when the day comes, and maybe it'll be in the eventual rematch with MJF, because we have to get a rematch at some point. Maybe it'll be there. Maybe it'll be at Wembley. I don't know. But when the day comes that he finally does bust out that Tiger Driver again, the place is going to go nuts. So they continue the whole Tiger Driver story in this match. And it sets up what should be an obvious rematch between these two. The way things went down here at the finish, it should be a rematch at Wembley in a perfect world, right? Although now they've gone 60 minutes. They gave you everything in this match. Every possible move and counter and kick out and a table spot. Like, what more could they possibly give us in a more condensed version? Because obviously this went 60. The next time they go, it'll be probably 30. It'll be half that, but it should be right for a rematch at Wembley. And yet I sit here and I'm not so sure that that's what they're going to do. What happens now with Pac? It was never brought up on the show. He said he wants his Wembley moment. He won a 4-way match to earn the right to challenge for the international title. He's next in line. Is he going to get the match at Wembley? I mean, it sounded like that coming into tonight, but there was no clarity on that. Daniel Garcia, he's out nursing his storyline injuries. When he comes back, he'll be gunning for MJF. The question is MJF going to still be the international champion? I mean, it feels to me like they're setting up for Garcia to win the title off of him. It could be at Wembley. It could be in Chicago at All Out. Are they going to do a 4-way? I don't really like that idea. Not that it would be a bad match, but do we need a 4-way? Do we need them all shoved into one match? No, I'd rather they split it off and have separate singles matches. So, depending on when Pac is getting his match, because I just can't see Pac and MJF being the match. I just don't think that's going to be the all-in match. Either they do it on TV, or maybe they get the belt off MJF between now and then. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do and how they're going to handle who gets their shot when. But I do have to give a shout out to someone. I want to give a shout out to Watch All Wrestling on X, because they tweeted me and they had an interesting idea. He said, you know what the story should be? Will Ospreay questioning if he will even be able to compete at All In now that he is no longer the champion. And he wasn't in the Owen. He didn't win the Owen. He didn't beat Swerve at Forbidden Door, so he's not the world champion. So, what's he going to do? And that's when the Open Challenge is issued and Ricochet debuts in AEW and Ricochet accepts the Open Challenge. Now, I don't know if he's implying that we wouldn't know until that night, and then Ricochet would come out as a surprise, and we get Ricochet and Ospreay as a surprise, match it All In. It's an interesting idea. Even if you announce it in advance, it's an interesting idea. I would love to see Ricochet come to AEW to wrestle Will Ospreay, and I'm sure he is coming into AEW, and I'm sure he is going to wrestle Will Ospreay. But to do that at All In would be interesting. And then they could do MJF and Daniel Garcia. But again, where that leaves Pac, I don't know. I mean, it could always do the match on TV beforehand. Pac should have a match, though. He should be on that card at Wembley. So I don't know what they're going to do. But I thought that was interesting. Basically, what he's pitching there is the Seth Rollins WrestleMania 38 idea, where Seth Rollins had no match going into WrestleMania. So he didn't know who his opponent was. It wasn't really an open challenge, but he didn't know who his opponent was going to be. Vince McMahon said he had chosen his opponent for him, and it turned out to be Cody Rhodes. That's kind of what he's describing there. But again, I can't say enough good things about this match. All the critiques I've seen, I didn't feel that way watching it. Didn't feel overly long to me. They held my attention. It was just a tremendously well-worked match. And everything that Ospreay was doing, MJF was giving it right back to him. So kudos to him for that, because there's not a lot of people who can work that style, hold for hold, move for move. And I thought MJF did a pretty fucking good job of keeping up with him in this match, proving that whatever he can do, he can pull it off the same way. And what we ended up with is one of the best matches I've seen in the history of Dynamite. So, thumbs up to both these guys.
I am the learning tree.
Hey, thumbs up to Oz and Glorious.
Thanks, guys.
For the learning tree. Thank you for the $12 super chat. Appreciate it. Thank you, Oz and Glorious.
I am the learning tree.
Thank you, Frode.
Thanks, guys.
Frode79. Also, dropping a learning tree. They're coming fast and furious. Row, Roman Reigns gently down the stream. Row, Roman Reigns gently down the stream. Uffman Entertainment with the $22 super chat. Thank you, sir. We go to the back, and Arkady Aura is backstage with the Acclaimed and the Ring of Honor World Champion, Mark Briscoe. Caster and Bowens, they said that Briscoe needs some partners for Blood and Guts because the AEW team. I mean, my God, we're a week out. And coming into the show tonight, we only knew 3 of the 5 members of Team AEW. We needed 3 more people. No, I'm sorry, 2 more. No, we had 2. We only had 2. That's all we had coming into tonight. We had Swerve and Mark Briscoe, right? So we needed 3 more. So the Acclaim were throwing their names in the hat, and they fired up Briscoe, and he agreed. But he said he wasn't the only one calling the shots. And that's when Swerve Strickland and Prince Nana walked in and said that there's no better people to go to war with than those that you have done battle with. And Strickland accepted. And so 4 of the 5 members of Team AEW were set for next week. And it seemed pretty obvious that Darby Allin was going to be rounding out the team, just based on the fact that we saw him last week on the show calling out Jack Perry. Jack Perry is in War Games next week, Blood and Guts, whatever. It's fucking War Game. I mean, let's just call it what it is. So, skipping ahead, there was a segment in the back later on in the show where Jack Perry is shown in the back, and he said that if Darby wanted his attention, all he had to do was ask. He didn't have to go and attack poor Brandon Cutler. And then he swerved everybody, and he said, basically, you might think that I actually care, but I really don't give a shit about Brandon Cutler. See, Jack Perry is one of us. Nobody gives a shit about Brandon Cutler. And then the camera panned down to show Brandon Cutler. He was hurt. He was on the ground. Perry picked him up. He threw him through a couple of doors into another area in the back. So he was kicking this guy's ass. And then he told Darby to meet him tonight if he wants to see what a real sacrifice looks like. And that would come at the end of the show. Hey, it's Lucky Sperm. Kevin Nash swimming his way as Roman Reigns is being rowed down the stream. He's swimming upstream. Thank you. I think that was Dark Effect. Thank you for the $7, Dark Effect. I appreciate it. And then I guess we have to talk about this. Big Bill was in the ring. The Redwood, right? Is that what Chris Jericho calls him, the Redwood? He was in the ring and he introduced the Learning Tree, Chris Jericho.
I am the
Good
learning
Lord,
tree.
I can't get away from it.
Thanks, guys.
Michael Darcy. Thank you, Michael Darcy, with a $12 Learning Tree. It's unavoidable. I'm going to have nightmares about this. I'm going to wake up in a cold sweat. It's 98 degrees in this room. I'm going to wake up in a cold sweat, chattering, shivering. So here comes Chris Jericho for another TV Time segment. Gets in the ring and he talks about how the crime rate in Little Rock, Arkansas is out of control. And I mean, every one of these TV Time segments is a crime. He threatened to never miss another Dynamite again and to be on every single one until episode 500. And Jericho was begging everybody to listen to him because bad things happen when people don't listen to him. We saw footage of Hook getting blinded and Samoa Joe being driven through a wall last week backstage. Jericho asked, who would be crazy enough not to listen to my teachings? And then we heard Kaza ni Nare. Out comes Minoru Suzuki, who is looking good, thankfully. I know there was I think it was in Japan, a match he had a few weeks ago where he collapsed in the middle of the match. He suffered a concussion. He's okay now, but that was a scary moment. But there he was, murdered grandpa himself back on Dynamite. And down to the ring comes Minoru Suzuki. He had the fans here in Little Rock, North Little Rock, singing Kaza ni Nare as he got into the ring. He had a contract in his hand. And the only words that he said were, next week. Brian Keith snatched the contract out of his hand, and he read that he and Big Bill are banned from ringside at Blood and Guts next week for the FTW title match between Chris Jericho and Suzuki. Suzuki at that point dropped Jericho with a headbutt. That was it. At least they kept it short. And I always enjoy seeing Minoru Suzuki. I always enjoy seeing him come out to that music, especially when the crowd sings along as they did tonight. So it's good to see him. And thankfully, they kept this very brief. Here's my question. The FTW title. It's basically a hardcore title, right? It's not even a sanctioned title in this company. So how do they expect to enforce a ban on Big Bill and Bryan? Like, what happens if they come out and they break the rules? I guess they could say the title automatically changes hands, I guess. I guess they could say that, but just based on the rules of the championship, like, how do you intend to even enforce these rules? Why am I even asking questions about a dumb title like this? Like, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Anyway, that match will take place on the show next week. And if we're lucky, Murder Grandpa will live up to his name, and we won't have to sit through TV time anymore. Wouldn't that be nice? We're backstage with the Elite, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson and Kazuchika Okada. Matthew said that after next week, they will have all the gold, all the power. After what they do to Strickland next week, the AEW title might become vacant. Mercedes Mone walked up to them. They're in the hallway. Thanked them for banning Britt Baker from the backstage area tonight. That was very interesting, right? Only banned from the backstage area. So that gave away what was coming later in the show. They didn't say that she's banned from the building. They didn't say she's banned from ringside. She's banned from the backstage area. It's good to know. Matthew said no issues from DMD for the CEO, thanks to the EVPs. Okada then requested that Mercedes do her CEO dance, and she danced for him. And she left, and Okada was all hot and bothered by this. He was patting his head. He looked like he was having a heart attack. Now, I usually get a kick out of the Okada stuff. I think his comedic timing is actually very underrated. But they need to be careful not to turn him into a complete cartoon character. Just be careful. Don't venture too far off the beaten path here. We had Mercedes Mone defending the TBS Championship against Nyla Rose.
YEET.
YEET. There's our new YEET. There you go. Look at Michael Cole. Look at this freak. Look at him. I'm supposed to take that guy seriously. YEET. Thank you, Toby. Toby says, hi, guys. Hi, Toby. And everybody else in the chat, hit that like button, by the way. Or we won't do Be the Booker tonight. So Mercedes originally threw out an open challenge. Nyla Rose on Collision accepted the open challenge. That's how we got to this match. Mercedes early on tried a head scissors, and Nyla just asked her, have you lost your mind? So Mone got draped over the top rope. Nyla went to the top, flew off with a diving knee strike to the head. It went to a break, and we came back from the break. Mone with an abdominal stretch applied to Nyla, who easily escaped. So Mercedes went for a sleeper hold. Nyla spun her around into a snap suplex, decked Mercedes with a clothesline and a corner cannonball. Both of them fought up in the corner, and Mone hit a diving bulldog before pulling out a black glove, a la Britt Baker. Put the black glove on her hand. She got Britt's lockjaw hold applied, but Nyla bit at the hand, and Mercedes switched to her statement maker finish, the former Bank statement, and got the submission. So she went out to the floor, and now Mercedes is ripping up a fan sign at ringside, as a Britt Baker sign that was being held up by somebody in the front row wearing a Sting mask. Boy, brought me back to the TNA days and that famous scene where RVD is going around the ringside area slapping hands with the fans, and there's a guy in a Sting mask who I think hits him in the head with a chair. And then I think it's in that scene. He pulls off the Sting mask, and then we see it's Sting, who's got either another mask on or had the face paint on, but it looked ridiculous. There were a lot of ridiculous moments like that in TNA. So every time I saw the Sting mask now, and that's one of the things I always think back to. But the person in the Sting mask pie faces Mercedes to the floor and then pulls the mask off to reveal Britt Baker, who jumps over the barricade. Mercedes has both belts. It's funny because she's got the titles like this. She's holding the titles as she's running. She's trying to flee. Security, though, gets in between them and stops Britt from going after her. This is what they're going to be doing for the next 4 weeks until we get to Wembley, because you don't want to peak too early, but they may have peaked too early. I don't know what they're going to do for 4 weeks, but they have to find some way to keep them apart between now and then, right? Did we have the contract signing already? Was that segment? I don't think that was a contract signing, though, right? That was a celebration, I thought. Well, if they didn't have a contract signing, I'm sure we'll get one at some point between those two. Now, last week, the end of Dynamite, we had a tremendous closing segment where Mariah May beat Willow Nightingale to win the Owen Hart tournament. And her and Toni Storm were celebrating her big win. They're skipping merrily up the aisleway. Mariah runs to the stage. There's the big cup. There's the Owen Championship belt. She grabs the Owen belt and she waffles Toni Storm upside the head with it. And what followed was a vicious attack. We have not seen vicious Mariah May in AEW. We did last week. Toni Storm got opened up, blood pouring down her face. The woman who every time we see her on TV is in black and white now has gotten color. Mariah May ended up knocking Luther off the stage through a table. And she was really going after her with that high heel shoe. You know, the woman who spent the last year telling people to watch for the shoe got her brains bashed in by one. And the look on Mariah May's face, she looked psychotic. It was a great angle. And I was not expecting that to happen last week. How are they going to follow it up? They hit timeless Toni Storm's music. And we have the black and white on screen. And out comes what appears to be timeless Toni Storm. And I got to tell you something. When they zoomed in on her face, like the idea was, oh, it's not her, right? When they initially zoomed in on her face, I saw Toni Storm. When Mariah dressed up as punk rocker Toni Storm, I saw Toni Storm. Like her Toni Storm cosplays are unbelievable because she had her hair done the same way. She still looked like her. You could tell, okay, it's Mariah May, but like it looked like Toni Storm. So she gets the full entrance. The black and white eventually turns to color. And she's standing there and she's silent. You know, she's not saying anything. And Tony Schiavone delivers one of the most unexpected lines that I have ever heard him utter. In all the years that this man has been doing commentary across multiple promotions, Jim Crockett Promotions and WCW, WWE, AEW, MLW, right? He's done commentary all over the place. This line right here is the one that just, it came out of nowhere. I was not expecting it. He says, "Just speak, bitch." He's getting impatient that this woman is not saying anything. Just speak, bitch. They're going to put that on his tombstone. Tony Schiavone, quote, "Just speak, bitch," end quote. Now, if it was a situation where Britt Baker had been viciously and violently attacked last week, like I could understand it because, you know, that's his girl. He and Britt are tight. They're like that, right? But in this case, he was just expressing his disgust, I guess, at the heinousness of the attack last week on Toni Storm. And so that was his way of expressing himself. But I was just like, did I hear that correctly? It just came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting that. So Mariah said, now she stood in the ring up against the ropes, looking into, I believe, the hard camera. And she said, everybody saw it coming last week, except for Toni Storm, who was so obsessed with the spotlight, she didn't know that she was giving it away. The question shouldn't be why. It should be, why did it take Mariah so long? She didn't think it would last this long either. It was so easy. It was so much fun stringing Toni along. She wanted to see how far it could go. Until she saw Wembley. And Mariah said, why take the old horse out back when she could kill it in front of as many people as possible? She said that she had been Toni Storm, but now she can be so much more. She said that she's never loved her more than when she loved Toni, that is, more than when she was on her knees, bleeding, crying, screaming her name. That was Toni's, that was a normal night for Ric Flair back in the 80s. But she said that was Toni's greatest performance. Her greatest performance will be at All In. Now, All Elite Wrestling is all about Mariah. Her delivery of this, the presentation of her being all dressed up like Toni Storm, I thought this was a very good follow-up to last week's great closing segment, marred only by the inbred morons in the crowd chanting, "What?" throughout the entire promo. And she didn't let it sidetrack her. She didn't play into it or feed into it or encourage it. She did her best to work around it. But again, you will always have the idiot. It doesn't matter what city they're in. It could be Little Rock, Arkansas. It could be Boston, Massachusetts. It could be right here in New York. It could be in California. It could be in Chicago. It could be in Hawaii. It could be Lake Titicaca. It could be anywhere in the world, any continent on the planet. You will always have at least a small subsection of fans whose mother had sex with her brother, and we get them. And then they go out there and they've got their Cyclops eye and they go, "What? What? 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 What'd you say? What?" Yeah, unfortunately, we have to live with this. It's been 20 plus fucking years of this what bullshit. So, yeah, it's annoying. But again, credit to her. She didn't let it sidetrack her. So I still thought it was a good promo. What? What'd you say? We got footage that aired of the Bang Bang Gang being stripped of their trios titles because Jay White is injured. I don't know how the injury happened. I don't know where the injury happened. I don't know what the nature of the injury is. I hope it's nothing too serious, but it sounds like it might be. But Jay White is hurt. Jay White is out. But they don't do the Freebird rule, we were told, in AEW. We don't do substitutions in AEW. Why not? You've got 4 members of the Bang Bang Gang. 1 man is injured. Juice Robinson, you just got him back. Plug him in there. Perfect. You got trios champions. Oh, no. We can't do that. We can't do that. We have to strip you. Christopher Daniels says we have to strip you of those titles, which is very stupid. Why must they make things unnecessarily convoluted? Why? So they showed Christopher Daniels in the back with them, explaining all of this to them and saying, if you don't relinquish your titles, you're going to be suspended and you will not be able to compete for them. So they gave up the belts, and this was completely ridiculous. Okay, they're still carrying around the pink belts that the Acclaimed had. So you've got the trios titles, you've got the pink belts, you've got the Ring of Honor 6-man titles, you got 9 titles. So when they hand them all over, they hand them over to some other people that were there with Christopher Daniels. Daniels took some of the belts. There's so many of them. I wanted them to just have like a big bonfire and just throw them all in the fucking fire. The belts, not the people. Austin Gunn said that they're not afraid of somebody with a daddy fetish, a TikTok kid, a mom from Brazzers, and a lizard. Talking about the patriarchy, not the Judgment Day. So that match is going to happen on Collision this Saturday. They will crown new trios champions then. This was very dumb on Saturday, and it was equally as dumb tonight. And then we had our main event, which was champion versus champion, non-title. The AEW World Champion Swerve Strickland going one-on-one with the Continental Champion Kazuchika Okada. Strickland brought Okada down and hit the leaping uppercut off the second rope before mocking the Rainmaker pose. Swerve ran into an Okada flapjack to the floor, then Okada was quickly out after him, hit a DDT as they went to commercial. Okada cut off Strickland in the corner and hit the air raid crash on the knee. followed with a top rope elbow, and then he flipped off the crowd during the Rainmaker pose, but Strickland kicked up into a takedown. Swerve missed the Swerve Stomp and ran into an Okada tombstone. Okada tried a Rainmaker, but Strickland spun into a Swerve Stomp. As Swerve was teasing the house call, the Young Bucks sprinted to the ring, attacked for the disqualification. The Acclaimed ran out to even the odds. Jack Perry ran out. Mark Briscoe ran out, took out the Bucks with a dive. Perry spiked him with a DDT. Swerve flew in out of nowhere with a house call kick and knocked out Jack Perry. And it looked like Swerve was going to be the last man standing here, standing tall in the middle of the ring. They played the Hangman's music. Out comes Hangman Adam Page. And I was wondering, I said, don't touch. You can't have them touch. Not tonight. Keep them apart. He got up on the apron, and they stared at each other for a few seconds from afar. And then Swerve got pulled out to the floor on one side. Hangman got pulled back down to the floor on the other side. A giant brawl broke out. So we never did get that, head-to-head, any physicality between the two of them, which is good. They need to save that for next week. Security separated Perry and the Bucks from the rest of the pack before Darby Allin's music hit. And everybody went crazy, and they're looking to the aisle, and they're looking in the crowd. They're trying to figure out, okay, where's this crazy person going to come from? He got the Sting entrance, and we see Darby Allin rappelling down from the ceiling slowly and backwards because he got twisted up a little bit. So he comes all the way down to the floor backwards. And as soon as Mark Briscoe unhooks the harness, the brawl was on. And Dynamite 250 ended in chaos, very reminiscent to the old days of Monday Nitro, where you had, the Sting entrance from the rafters, you had the giant brawl, you had Tony Schiavone on commentary. Now, if only this show could pull the kind of numbers that Nitro used to pull back in the day, they'd be sitting pretty. They'd be getting themselves a sweet deal, a sweet renewal from Warner Brothers Discovery. They're going to get their renewal. It ain't going to be as sweet, though, as if they had those Nitro numbers from all those years ago. They announced 2 pay-per-view caliber matches for this show tonight. They could not do a draw. Like, if the opening match would have gone to a time limit draw, you can't do a 60-minute draw in the opening match with no winner. And then come back here in this match and have a disqualification finish. You can't do that. You have to at least have one, not necessarily clean, but one decisive finish. That's what we got in the opening match. That's not what we got here in this match. At least we got it in the MJF match. Because if that would have ended in a draw and they did the finish they did here, and that's how these 2 big matches ended on Dynamite 250, I think a lot of people who tuned in for 250 would not be tuning in for 251. So at least we had one decisive finish. This was disappointing as far as the finish. Not surprising, though, because the whole point of this match being set up in the first place was to kind of set the table for Blood and Guts next week. Swerve is in Blood and Guts. Okada is in Blood and Guts. Let's take the 2 champions. We'll put them in a match together. We'll give people a little taste of what to expect next week. It's still made for a disappointing finish. The match itself was okay. It should have been more than okay. But I would say the match itself was okay. I know what these 2 could do together. We didn't get that tonight. And it's not even that I was expecting, especially after the opening match, it's not that I was expecting them to go out there and have a 25 or 30-minute all-time classic. It just never got out of first gear for me. I thought it was just a very basic match. So you hear Swerve and Okada, like, wow, that's going to be a big deal. And it just didn't come off that way. I have no idea, by the way, I have to mention this as well. I have no idea why Darby Allin returned on the show last week. Can you explain this to me? Why did we need Darby Allin in that quick, it almost felt just inserted at the last minute segment last week where he just randomly showed up and beat up Brandon Cutler, who's never on the show, who nobody gives a fuck about. And it was just stuck in there. It was literally like a 60-second segment. Why not just wait and have him return from the rafters and make a big surprise return as the fifth man for Team AEW in Blood and Guts and keep people guessing. They made it very obvious who the fifth man was going to be. So if that was going to be the big finish here on this show, I don't understand what the purpose of that segment last week was. Why even put that in the show in the first place? It's a head scratcher for me. I have no idea why they bothered doing that. But the two teams now are set for Blood and Guts. We have the Young Bucks, Okada, and Jack Perry are going to be and Hangman Page are going to be taking on Swerve, the Acclaimed, Mark Briscoe, and Darby Allin, who was also part of the Anarchy in the Arena match. He will now be a part of Blood and Guts. Just recovered and cleared from the broken foot and the broken nose from being hit by a bus. By the way, he got hurt again in the Anarchy in the Arena match when he was hanging upside down. I think they super kicked some thumbtacks into his face. Apparently it injured his septum in his already broken nose. So now he's all healed up, and his first match back is Blood and Guts. I don't think this company gives a fuck about Darby Allin, but then again, Darby Allin doesn't seem to give a fuck about Darby Allin, so why should Tony Khan be any different? But boy, you tell me they really don't give a shit about this kid. Holy shit. This is his first match back. I can only imagine. He's gonna go flying. He's gonna go flying off that cage next week. You watch. It's going to be like Canyon when they did that triple cage of doom or whatever it was called in WCW. They had the gimmicked ramp and he took a header off and he went through the stage. At least they set things up and they gimmicked it up. Darby would just jump. Like, I don't need any padding. I'll just jump. Just put like a pane of glass across some chairs on the bottom. I'll be fine. I'll be all right. Anyway, why did we get these two matches on the show tonight? Why did they do MJF and Will Ospreay tonight instead of waiting for Wembley Stadium? Tony Khan is loading these shows up. And again, we're going right into Blood and Guts next week. He's loading these shows up because he's trying to close the deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. We are in the home stretch here. We keep hearing about this every single week. He keeps talking about it. And he's very bullish and telling us that it's going to be great. We're going to get a great media rights deal. It's going to be great. You know, Mr. David Zaslav, and we have a great partner in Warner Brothers Discovery. We have great numbers on Dynamite, and they think the numbers are great, and I think he's great, and he thinks I'm great, and I think Frosted Flakes are great, and everything is great, right? We hear about this every single week. He's trying to secure the future of his show, and he is trying to secure the future of his company, because that is how important this deal is going to be whenever the deal finally gets made. And he felt like he had to throw up or throw out, throw up too, but throw out a whole bunch of matches to try to bring in as many people into these shows as he possibly could, to try to make the show look good, to try to pop a number. Is it going to work? I don't know. It depends on your definition of what a good number is. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference in all honesty, but I'll tell you what I'm interested in. I actually am very curious in the quarter hours for that first hour. It could be tough when you do a long match like that, or you do a 60-minute match over the course of an entire hour, to hold the audience. That's what I'm curious. Did they do a good job of holding the audience throughout from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m.? That's what I'm going to be looking for, because it can be a tough thing to do. I thought they knocked it out of the park. I thought it was an exciting match, but we'll see what the numbers, reflect when they come in. But that was the story of Dynamite tonight. It was all about MJF and Will Ospreay. And to that end, I thought they had an outstanding match. The second hour, not so much. But I thought that first hour was great. Let's take a look at the poll. The poll's a little bit different. The poll this week was asking what you thought of that match. What did you think of hour one, basically, of Dynamite with MJF and Will Ospreay? And right now, with over almost 1,200 votes in, we're at just shy of 70% thumbs up. 68.6% thumbs up for MJF against Will Ospreay. 15.6% thumbs in the middle. And 15.8% thumbs down for that match. So there you go. About 70% up so far. You can go vote at Solomonster. Let me know what you thought. What did you like or dislike about that match? That is the poll for this week. Let's take a look at your super chats again. I thank you all. Anybody who sent one in, you guys are awesome. And thank you very much for the support. I appreciate it. We are currently sitting at 370 likes, so we have a ways to go here before we get into Be the Booker range. If you want, Be the Booker, hit that like button. It's going to be up to you guys. Let's go to your messages. Let's kick things off here with The Real CS 02. With a $4.99, I don't care what people say, I would have Joe Hendry win the NXT Championship, even for a couple of weeks. I think that would be cool to see. I think that Joe Hendry should win the TNA World Heavyweight title that he's competing for at Slammiversary this weekend, and I think it would be ridiculous for him not to be. Because if ever there was a time that he was going to win that title, it's now or never. So, I think it's a six-way match, I believe, right? Moose is in there. Josh Alexander, I know, is in there. Nick Nemeth is in there. Who am I missing? Forgot the other names, but Joe Hendry, before he wins the NXT title, should be winning the TNA World Heavyweight title. Strike while the iron is high. You don't know if this guy's going to be over like this in 6 months. Got to take advantage of his popularity now. Christian Trahan with the $9.99. Loved the ending. Reminded me of how Nitro would end their show with a WCW versus NWO brawl and Sting coming down from the rafters at the very end. Great show all around. Yep, that's exactly what that ending was supposed to remind you of. The Mount Vernon Kid, Christopher Bennett with the $5. Call of the night, in my opinion, from Tony. Speak, bitch. Caught me off guard. You should think about turning it into a super chat. It caught me off guard too. Again, it was just so random and out of left field. But I guess when you get old, that's what happens. You get cranky. Justin G, I got under 100 kg for the first time in about a decade. Well, congratulations. Any lesser known wrestling book recommends? Got a new ebook reader, want to fill it. Thanks, guys. I mean, there's a bunch of wrestling books I can recommend. I don't know how under the radar they are. I reviewed Bob Holly's book on the show. I interviewed Bob a number of years ago. I thought it was a very honest read. It was a very, very good book. So I want to say maybe 2015 it came out. If you never read it, I think it's worth checking it out if it's available, which it should be. So definitely take a look at that. You know, again, Daniel Bryan had a great book. I could recommend the Nitro book by Guy Evans. It's very stat heavy. There's a lot of numbers and a lot of interviews with people who work for Turner Management. Probably the most well-rounded account of the rise and fall of WCW is that Nitro book by Guy Evans. So that would be another one. Dave Penzer, actually, with Guy Evans' help, just came out with a book as well. So you want to look up Dave Penzer's book, that's another one. Dave Penzer was the ring announcer for many years in WCW. Jerome Eugenio. What's going on, Jerome? Jesse Ventura would be screaming for a DQ after that little girl hit MJF. Jesse Ventura would also be asking, why is the referee not counting these men out? Oz and Glorious, hi Solo Branch. AEW television is infinitely better when we are not being subjected to Daniel Garcia and Daddy Magic on every show. Also, fuck the what chance during Mariah May's promo. Thanks, guys. We have got... You and I are in agreement on the what chance. Frode79, did you know there are 1,533 crimes committed for every 100,000 residents in Little Rock? Thanks, guys. I did not, but now I do. So I will not be moving to Little Rock. That settles that. I was about to close on a home in Little Rock, but now, you know what? I've changed my mind. Uffman Entertainment with the $22 super chat. Mariah should come out wearing the exact same wrestling gear as Toni Storm at Wembley. If not, then why are we even here? I don't think she has to. I mean, they look so much alike, it would be confusing. It would be like Undertaker against Undertaker at SummerSlam. Jorge, met you at the Hog Show on Cinco de Mayo. You're the man. Jorge, thank you very much, man. I've met a few people, actually, a few listeners of the show at that Cinco de Mayo show. Always love seeing people at the show. I'm going to be at the next show next Friday. Our biggest show, one of our biggest shows of the year. High Intensity. The man you saw in the ring tonight with Okada. The man who's going into Blood and Guts next week. Let's get a prayer circle going, please, around Swerve Strickland, that he does not get hurt in Blood and Guts next week, because we have him coming to House of Glory next Friday. He's wrestling Amazing Red. We worked very hard to bring him back. I don't want him to get hurt next week in Blood and Guts. Hangman, you better stay the fuck away, you hear me? You leave him alone. But Jorge, maybe I'll see you at the show next Friday. If you see me, say hello. I'll be in Chicago as well, by the way, on September 5th. I'm coming back to Chicago. I haven't been to Chicago in a while. We got Dijak coming in. Since WWE didn't want to do shit with him, we're going to use him. We're going to use him the right way. Dark Effect, thank you for the 7. Do you think AEW did themselves a disservice not announcing Will versus MJF would be an Iron Man match? Would it have helped the ratings more? It wasn't an Iron Man match. And no, I actually prefer doing it the way that they did. I think announcing an Iron Man match is actually the exact opposite of what you should be doing, because you're telegraphing that the match is going 60 minutes no matter what. In a lot of cases, it kills the early part of the match because you know the match is not going to be over. I think the Bret Hart-Shawn Michaels match at WrestleMania 12 would have been a lot more enjoyable had it not been for them announcing in advance that it was going to go 60 minutes. That's one great example of what I'm talking about. So, no, they did exactly the right thing. If that was their plan, don't announce it, just do it. Keep people guessing. Don't tell them in advance, hey, this is going to go 60, you know? Go grab a snack. Go finish your work. Right? This ain't going to be over for a while. Better doing it the way that they did. Hey, what's that over there with the $5 super chat? Maybe at Wembley, or Wembley, he says. Maybe at Wembley Stadium. Will versus MJF, 2 out of 3 falls. Pac versus Ricochet. Garcia gets title shot at All Out after a big return at I can't get over this. Wembley. I don't know why this is so funny to me. 2 out of 3 falls, MJF and Ospreay, and then Pac against Ricochet. Yeah, but when does Pac get his shot then? I mean, again, there's still a lot of questions to be answered here. Some combination of all these men. I don't know exactly where all of the pieces are going to fall just yet. Michael Darcy with the Learning Tree. Great Learning Tree segment. I'm actually enjoying the character and the super chat. Thanks, guys. Well, so you are the one. But Michael, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy the super chat. Oz and Glorious. Can't believe people are actually whining about the Ospreay MJF match. Some folks just love 35 minutes of wrestling on a 3-hour show. Bring Hog west. Hog is coming to Las Vegas on August 17th. Where have you been, brother? I'm not going to be there, but House of Glory is coming to Vegas. We're making our Vegas debut August 17th. Partnering up with one of the local promotions out there. Go check it out, hogwrestling.net. But yeah, I mean, people... Look, it's perfectly fine to have critiques about the opening match if you weren't a fan of it. But to just shit on it and say that, it was too much wrestling, or it was,
I am the Learning Tree. Thanks, guys.
Isaiah, thank you for the $12 super chat. Isaiah Roca. We didn't get a whole lot of wrestling on Raw this week, so I'm glad we got it on Dynamite.
I'm the learning tree. Thanks, guys.
I mean, I'm all about story, and there's some good ones being told right now in WWE, but at the same time, you still got to give me some wrestling here. We didn't get a whole lot of that on Monday. We got plenty of it in that opening hour tonight. The Antagonist, listening since 2007. Oh, 2017. I turned dyslexic all of a sudden. I was going to say 2007 was my first year. Listening since 2017. Says, thanks, Solomonster. How much of MJF and Ospreay's match was called in the ring and how much was rehearsed? I have no idea. I was not the agent on the match, so I don't know. The match just happened. Perhaps that news will come out tomorrow. I was not the agent working the match, so I don't have any answers for you. But I am sure that plenty of it was called out there in the ring because they're two pros who are very good at what they do, and I don't think they need to rehearse every single little thing in the back. So that would be my guess. Most of it, in a match that long, I'm sure a good chunk of it was called out there. Toby says, thanks, guys. Breaking in our new $15 super chat. Toby says, please make the what chant a super chat. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Why would I do that? I don't even want it on the shows. Why would I want it on my show? Unless he was talking about my impression. I thought you were talking about the actual what chant. Base Beerus, are you open to playing other theme music for intro? No, I play MJF's because it's not copyright protected. Why would I play other theme music if it's copyright protected? Then I don't make any ad money. What's the point of that? It's not even that you don't make any ad money. It's that if you can play any song you want on YouTube. If I wanted to open my streams with fucking Hall & Oates, I could do that. But I'm not going to make any ad money, and it also is going to hide the video. I believe the algorithm hides the video. If it gets dinged for like a copyright violation, I don't think it's as visible. So it's not gonna get in front of as many people. So you try to avoid doing that. But one of these days, I may just say, you know what, fuck it. Just let's just start with some Thriller by Michael Jackson. We'll kick off the Raw review. People will be like, holy shit, Solomonster's loaded, man. He bought the rights to Thriller. Final Countdown. Yeah, there you go. Just bankrupt me. We'll play some Final Countdown here to open up the Dynamite stream next week. Oh, man. Oz and Glorious is the learning tree, the most over super chat ever. I think it is. It's more over on this stream than it is on the actual TV show. Retro KOH, I predict that when Ospreay finally hits the Tiger Driver again, it will be on Don Callis himself. Gotta wait for the betrayal first. It's coming, man. It's coming, don't forget. He didn't let him out of his deal with the Callis family for nothing, because he's a nice guy. I'd like to request It's Raining Men. Oh, man. We'll play some Michael McDonald, maybe. You know what one of my favorite songs is? Actually, I've always loved this song. I just love the sound. I love the beat. I couldn't name you a single other song that this woman has composed.
I'm the learning tree.
Or sang.
Thanks, guys.
In her life. The song called Black Velvet by Alana Miles. Great song. I think it's a 90s song. Look it up. Black Velvet by Alana Miles. I'd love to play that here on the stream. Just like open up a stream with that one day. Isaiah Roca with the $12 learning tree. Evening Solo. Hope you're feeling better after being sick. I am, thank you. Says, do you think if Brody doesn't pass on when Bray returns to wrestling, does he somehow convince Bray to join him in AEW? Thanks, guys. We'll never know. Ultimately, it would have been up to Tony Khan if he was interested in bringing in Bray Wyatt. I don't see why he wouldn't have been. So I think that there's a pretty decent chance. Maybe it goes the other way and he ends up in AEW. And that would make Bliss fan a huge AEW fan. Oh, it's a late 80s song? All right, I thought maybe it was early 90s. But again, it's called Black Velvet. I always love that song. There's something about that song. That was always a favorite of mine. See, Rob knows. Rob in the chat knows. Black Velvet, if you please. Uffman Entertainment. Now that you say that, next month will be the 30th anniversary of The Undertaker versus Undertaker at SummerSlam. Maybe a watch along. Or Brett versus Owen. I would consider that. That is my favorite cage match. That is the best cage match of all time. So I might have to consider that. I didn't realize that it is going to be 30 years since that SummerSlam. So, remind me, because the Brett Owen one would make for a good watch along. Chris Manson, can't wait to hear the pop that Toni Storm gets when she returns. Do you think that we are nearing the end of the timeless gimmick? Also, my favorite TLC song is Say My Name. You acting kind of shady and calling me baby. Right, Chris. Got a good taste in music. Yeah, I think the timeless gimmick is probably winding down, I would say. I mean, it has to at some point. Which is a shame because she's just so freaking good at it. I mean, this is a woman who literally went running away from WWE. Like, she was booked at a house show. She booked her own flight and fled. And ran away and went home. She was so unhappy at the time. Whatever it was that set her off. She ran away. And then you see the success that she's had in AEW and how she's just killed it with this gimmick. She's been champion for like a year now. It's cool to see. Joseph Brooks, you have said that 2000 is the best year creatively and the best year of the Attitude Era. Well, I mean, I said it was the best year creative. What is the best year creatively of the Ruthless Aggression and PG era? I don't know about the PG era. PG era just kind of runs together for me. The Ruthless Aggression era, I would say 2002. And we have got... Hey, Anonymous, thank you for the $2. Monster Mania is running wild. Brandon Cutler should be the next WWE champion. Who said that? Well, now I see it was all this dick and bouse. What? I think he meant balls, but all this dick and bouse. Says Brandon Cutler should be the next WWE champion. Empower Spying Games with the $6. I remember listening to Black Velvet on the radio right before they announced the death of Queen Elizabeth II 2 years ago. See, even to this day, man, they play that on the radio. You must be listening to the oldie station. See, the oldie station for me, that was like 60s and 70s stuff. And now it makes me sad. There's some stations now where the oldies consider some of the 80s songs now to be oldies, and now that makes me feel old. But yet, 80s music is still the shit, man. You have plenty of people who are a hell of a lot younger who grew up in the 2000s who are big fans of 80s music. You know, I didn't really listen to 70s stuff too much when I was younger, but I kind of feel like a lot of younger people now would have no problem listening to 80s, and they probably enjoy some of the 80s music more than they do music today. because it was that damn good. Boney, will you be trying the Cody and Rhea skin in Call of Duty? I don't play Call of Duty, so no, I will not. I will not. The way that I read that, like, will I be trying this? Will I be trying Rhea's skin? Sounds like something out of a horror movie. Will I be trying her skin? I see Alan Jones in the chat with a terrible taste in music. He also thinks the earth is flat. Spread the word. Anyway, Boney, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for all the likes. We are currently sitting at 425 likes. We also have 11 new channel members tonight. Between the new members and the gifted memberships. So welcome to all of our new channel members. Thank you, guys. And right now, including, look at this. Just as I say that, we have Cal L. A Sound Off superstar. Welcome, Cal. It's time to be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
Speaking of skin, look at all that leathery skin on screen right now. We have Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. The title graphic here for Be the Booker here. I figured we would start out with stipulations here. We'll pick a stipulation for our first match, which is going to be a tag team match, playa. Let's pick a stip. See what we land on here, shall we? We're going to have a tag team Punjabi prison match. Oh, this should be interesting. This should be very interesting. A tag team Punjabi prison match. Team number 1. The Ultimate Maniacs. The Macho Man Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior. This right here was supposed to be a Survivor Series match in '92. The Warrior got fired right before Survivor Series, and so Randy Savage had to go out and find himself a new tag team partner, which turned out to be Mr. Perfect, and that is one of the all-time great turns on Primetime Wrestling. They built it up throughout the show, and then Perfect went babyface for the first time, and he poured water on Bobby Heenan's head and said, "Macho, I'll be your partner." It was so great. Okay, let's see. Can you imagine the Ultimate Warrior in a Punjabi prison match climbing those cages? That rickety-ass cage. Oh, look at this. We had some lucky sperm. Kevin Nash popping up on screen. It just splattered on our screen. There you go.
With a tear in my eye.
And as soon as we have the lucky sperm splattering on the screen, Ric Flair appears. Because of course he does. Macho Man and the Ultimate Warrior in a Punjabi prison match against Chris Jericho and The Big Show. I'm giving that the belt because I want to see the Warrior and I want to see Big Show scaling the Punjabi prison cage. Just out of morbid curiosity, I would love to see what that looks like. That would be quite amazing. And, you know, not for nothing, Savage and Jericho, you know, in their prime years, that could be good. Did you see that video clip? It was from the most recent Jericho cruise, which was earlier this year. It was floating around on social media this week. And I guess Paul White had a match. I assume it was on the cruise this year. Paul White had a match. It might have been a tag match of some kind, but he was in it. Lance Archer was in it. They were in the ring together. And it's just, he could barely move. You know, it's like the deterioration in such a relatively short period of time where he at least was mobile, and now he's virtually immobile. And it's understandable because he's older, he's a giant. You know, Andre had his issues and didn't get it taken care of, and he passed away very young. So it's great to still have him with us, but it's sad, you know, to see that he can barely move. And I don't know. I don't know what his plans are. If he plans on trying to wrestle again, I hope not. Because it is painful to see. All right, women's Be the Booker. I mean, he's had all kinds of like hip operations and knee surgeries. His hip, I know, has really been the main issue over the past few years. But why are you in the ring? If that's the case, why are you in the ring? You know? Paul White is not under the learning tree. Paul White is the learning tree. He is a tree. All right, we begin with, oh, I know who's going to be excited for this. Alexa Bliss. And this is not Funhouse Alexa, evil Alexa. This is the goddess Alexa Bliss, who may or may not soon be on her way back. I don't know. Maybe she's happy being a mom. Maybe she's retired. But Alexa Bliss, here in Be the Booker, multi-time women's champion. Bliss fan will be happy. A Bliss fan is doing, remember the Dance of Joy that Balky and cousin Larry used to do on Perfect Strangers? He's doing the Dance of Joy right now. All right, Alexa Bliss going to go one-on-one with Lita. Lita and Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss has held more titles than Lita did. Believe it or not. And now we come to the main event. We end this night with our main event. And we are trying for a clean sweep. So let's see if we can do it. We begin with Kurt Angle. Oh, I'd say that's a fine way to kick off Be the Booker. Oh, it's true. It's damn true. Kurt Angle. One of the GOATs, man. Kurt's the GOAT. Kurt Angle. In our main event. One-on-one. With The Undertaker. And not just The Undertaker. This is old school gray glove Undertaker. Unfortunately, this is the version of The Undertaker that would basically just choke for the entire match. So this match would look very different than, say, the match they had at No Way Out in 2006, where Undertaker was the best pure striker in WWE, and he was using the go-go plata, and he was doing dives out of the ring. This Undertaker would choke, and then roll his eyes in the back of his head and choke again. But I think Kurt would make sure that the two of them went out there and had a great match. I always love Gray Glove Undertaker. You want to see one of the real hidden gems and one of the cooler Undertaker moments that a lot of people never got to see, and a lot of people probably don't even know it exists. Thankfully, it exists on YouTube. Go look up the match from '91. When they were in Barcelona, Spain. They were on tour in Spain, and it was The Undertaker against Tito Santana. Go watch that match. Go listen to the reaction of the fans to Tito Santana when he comes out and when he beats The Undertaker. He pinned The Undertaker. I believe he was the first man to pin The Undertaker. Certainly in a match on a show that was either taped for television locally or aired on video. First time I ever saw Undertaker get pinned. And it was Tito Santana who did it. He hit him in the head with the urn and pinned him. And you would think this man just won the WWE title. like the reaction, it was actually very cool to see that kind of reaction. And there's so many people who probably have no idea that it even happened. But yeah, I want to say it had to be 91. I don't know exactly what the date was, but it had to be 1991. And then he cut the promo outside after the match was over. And, you know, it's in Spanish. I couldn't understand it, but it's Tito. So, of course, it ends with Arriba! And everybody goes crazy. Those were simpler times. Got some parting super chats here. We have got, let's see, who do we have? The Juliet, 316. If you listen carefully, Black Velvet is about Elvis Presley, his life and death. I kind of got that sense. There's a lyric in the song that I think was pulled from one of his songs. So I didn't know it was about him, but I you could tell there was some Elvis influence in the song. Ed Swoggle. Black Velvet was one of my favorites until I became a bar karaoke host and drunk women constantly ruined it for me. Always loved singing Hall & Oates, though. Well, I could see where that might turn you against it. Duff's Vid says that the date of the match was October 5th, 1991. Well, that answers that. Man, I would have turned, the next day I would have turned, I'm not going to tell you. You thought I was going to tell you. Uffman Entertainment. 101.1 CBS FM, local New York and New Jersey area, as you may know, is the oldie station. Growing up, it played 50s and 60s and 70s. Now it plays music from the 90s. 90s is now considered oldies. I know. I have 101.1 in my radio dial in the car. And 80s and 90s are now considered oldies. It's fucking sad. It's fucking sad. There was a Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch song that came on. Good Vibrations. Apparently Good Vibrations is considered oldies now. Just shoot me. Just shoot me. Justin Hesse. Just got a front row seat to Hog in Chicago. Hope to meet you and other channel members. Well, that is awesome. I will see you there. I don't know where we're going to be sitting as far as the announcers. Every venue is different. I've not been to Logan Square Auditorium before. We could be at ringside. We could be up in the balcony somewhere. So I don't know where I'll be, but just make sure you hit me up. Let me know. Tweet me or whatever. So I don't miss you when I'm there. Do I think Undertaker's WrestleMania streak should have ended? If so, against who? Or do you think it should not have ended? It should not have ended. That's what I think. Mike with the $5. I'm still waiting for the Solomonster Goldberg scaffold match. Maybe SummerSlam. I'm still in deep training. It's going to be at least Royal Rumble before I'm ready. And Base Beerus, God of Seduction. Unfortunately, Kurt declined real fast, too. The reason Kurt Angle declined so fast, a good part of it was because he wanted to wrestle when he came to WWE. When he came back, Vince wouldn't let him and said, you're going to be the general manager. So he didn't wrestle. He didn't take bumps for like a year. And as he has explained, what happens is when you don't take bumps for that long, as time goes on, your body stiffens up. And that's why he looked so stiff in that last match he had with Baron Corbin. So, but even if he would have wrestled on day one in WWE, you could see the decline within a few years. He worked a rough style, he was very injury prone with the neck and everything. So that's what happens. When you work that style, you work yourself to the bone, you're going to deteriorate that much faster than everybody else. Hey, Rican Son. What's going on, Rican Son? He's one of our Sound Off legends. Member for 32 months. turning the big 28 on Sunday. Thank you for all your hard work. What are your thoughts on the OMG Mets song? I have not heard the OMG Mets song. I'm so out of the loop right now on everything. I can't even watch Mets games anymore most of the time. We don't have SNY. SNY was taken off of YouTube TV, and they didn't work out a new agreement, so I don't even have the network that airs the Mets games. When they air games on Channel 11, I'm usually working, so I guess I'll have to listen to this OMG Mets song. I have not heard it. But Rican son, happy birthday, brother. I hope it's a great one. So the next time I am live with you will be Friday night. We get to talk about SmackDown. We'll see what is next in the chapter of the bloodline and Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. I don't expect him to be on the show. We'll see if we get Kevin Owens back. But that is where you can find me, as well as Sound Off episode 871 coming up on Sunday. Go back and check out the Raw review from Monday night if you missed that. That is also up for your listening pleasure. And of course, TNT. Last night, JD and I, we had a 3.5-hour show. Somehow they only get longer. We have to go in the opposite direction. We have to shorten them. But when you get two people who love talking and hearing themselves talk, this is what happens. We had a great discussion on TNT last night on his channel, so go check that out as well. Daddy Ugarte, thank you very much. Everybody, thank you guys for hanging out with me and keeping me company on a Wednesday night. Shout out to MJF and to Will Ospreay. They fucking killed it tonight. A great wrestling match. Love to see it. Still think it should have been saved for Wembley. It is what it is. Be well. Stay safe. Come on back for the SmackDown review on Friday night, and we will do it all over again right here on the Solomonster Sounds Off channel. Take care, guys.
Fuck Kevin Dunn.